Yes, you came back for the films, but you also came back because of the neighbor you met that you sat next to. You came back to the film festival. You talk about the people that you fell in love with, and some people got married, some people had kids here, David Poland. You know? You talk about standing in line, rain or shine, although I don't like making you stand in the rain, but standing in line and learning something about the people who are on this journey with you. Tonight, it's going to be quite a journey, because in addition to seeing this amazing, amazing film about Aretha Franklin, we are going to have the Martin Luther King Community Choir performing afterwards. I wonder sometimes, and I've said this, before, how many more years can we keep doing it? As long as I see you coming, I'll keep coming back. But I'm 21 years older than I was when we first started. But guess what? Some of you are too. We have a reception before this at the President's house, and it is my great honor to introduce the President of the University of Illinois, Dr. Tim Kaine.
Thank you, Chaz, and good evening, everyone. If you're from out of town, welcome to the construction site that is Champaign-Urbana. But we hope to have it ready for the 21st, but maybe the 22nd. It'll all be done, and it'll be good. My wife, Roberta, back there, and I are really delighted to join you to kick off this year's 21st edition of Ebertfest. What a tradition, as welcome as the spring warm-up here in the heart of Illini Nation, a chance to pay tribute to one of the University of Illinois' most decorated alumni and celebrate his love of film. Roger's unique Pulitzer-winning talents at the keyboard turned even thumbs-down movies into memorable entertainment, and I did some research on that. He compiled some of them in the more than a dozen books he wrote over his lifetime with clever titles that left no doubt what to expect inside the cover, like the one that was entitled, "I Hated, Hated, Hated This Movie," or the even more succinct, "Your Movie Sucks," or my personal favorite, "A Horrible Experience of Unbearable Length." So, like his book titles, the word pictures he painted in his harshest reviews could have earned a smile from the unlucky producers, directors, and stars of the films they targeted. Well, maybe not all of them at once. But take this one quote from a 21 release, I won't mention it, where he said, "This movie doesn't scrape the bottom of the barrel," he wrote. "This movie isn't the bottom of the barrel. This movie isn't below the bottom of the barrel. This movie doesn't deserve to be mentioned in the same sentence as barrels." Now, as a university president, I got a lot to learn from this kind of language, and I was practicing in the mirror the barrel quote, but I don't think I can quite pull it off. Roger had fun also, obviously at the expense of box office bombs, but it was the good films, especially Roger's thumbs up, way up movies, that brought out his true passion. They reflected the deep, impactful power that he saw in film, the power not just to entertain, but to educate and to foster awareness and understanding. Great filmmaking, he said, creates characters so vivid, so real and relatable that we can actually see what the world looks like from inside their shoes. And a couple of hours of perspective through the eyes of somebody from another nationality, another race, another gender or culture, or another station in life goes a long way towards fostering a sense of empathy, already mentioned, which he once said he considered the most essential quality of civilization. Of all the arts, he wrote, movies are the most powerful aid to empathy, and the good ones make us into better people. And it's a perfect lesson for the times we live in now, where we're seeing negative, polarizing turn in the national discourse, amplified by social media, actually invented at the University of Illinois. So we have some responsibility here. So take a tip from Roger. Use the movies not just to escape the rhetoric, but as your window to the world and to enlightenment. And what better place to start than here at Roger's namesake festival with a dozen movies that define his vision of filmmaking at its best. I'm deeply grateful to Chaz for her leadership, leading this remarkable event, and giving us a chance to pay tribute to Roger every year for everything he has done for his alma mater. And my thanks to the festival director, Nate Cohen, Dean Tracy Sulkin, and her team at the College of Media, and all of the sponsors and contributors who make this a wonderful event. Thanks to all of you for joining us here tonight at the movies.
And now I'd like to introduce the Dean of the College of Media. I keep wanting to call it the College of Communications because that's what it was called when Roger graduated from it. But it encompasses so many more things than it did then. Please help me welcome Dean Tracy Sulkin.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tracy Sulkin, and as Dean of the College of Media at the University of Illinois, I'm excited to welcome everybody to the 21st Annual Ebertfest. Ebertfest is all about sharing powerful stories, and particularly stories that evoke empathy and compassion. In fact, the origins of Ebertfest tell a powerful story themselves. It's the story of an Urbana native named Roger Ebert, who goes on to pursue a journalism degree from the University of Illinois, then an illustrious career at the Chicago Sun-Times, where he becomes the first film critic to receive the Pulitzer Prize. And he decides to use this influence to shine a light on movies that he believed deserved extra attention, warranted more discussion, and thoughtful engagement. And he invites his alma mater to be part of this vision. 21 years later, here we are, gathered to experience a new selection of films. We're so thankful to Roger Ebert for his legacy. The College of Media is proud to be a host of this landmark festival, engaging filmmakers, writers, actors, community members, the movie fans, and students. We want to ensure that future generations know the story behind Ebertfest and that they too have the opportunity to be part of this communal, enriching experience. We appreciate our partners at the University of Illinois, the Champaign Park District, our loyal sponsors, our dedicated volunteers, and you, the movie fan. Thank you for helping us to bring these films and their creators to town. Let me also express my thanks to the passionate people who helped make this festival possible, Andy Hall and Nate Cohen, who organized and directed, and our co-founder, producer, host, and friend, Chaz Ebert. Thank you all for the hours you spend to make this such a fantastic experience. So once again, the College of Media at the University of Illinois welcomes you to the best show in town. Happy 21st anniversary to Ebertfest.
Before our movie, I have to invite two more people on stage because we have something special. We say that we're a family, and when someone needs help and requests it, we're here. So first, I want to invite Nate Cohen, the festival director, who's been the director all 21 years. Nate Cohen.
I think she expects me to say something. So welcome. You know, they say 20 years is a generation, so this is the start of the second generation of Ebertfest, and we're so happy that you all are a part of it. I said you all because I now live in the South.
And I'd also like to call up to the stage a new member of our family who's been with us for 2 years now. And he has been a great coordinator, Andrew Michael Hall. Andy.
Thank you.
No, Andy, stay out here. Now, before I bring our filmmakers in, I just want to tell you this quickly, because those of you who have passes for the whole festival are in for such a treat. We have the women from Bound, Gina Gershon and Jennifer Tilley here. We have the director of Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion, David Merkin. We have the director of this wonderful documentary about Maya Angelou, Miss Rita Coburn-Wack, and others. I didn't want to name everyone, and so I shouldn't have started naming, but I did. Because that's not why I have you on here. Really, the family thing is someone is in the hospital and asked if I would mention it, because he says he needs advocates. He needs advocates right now. And it's Jeff Dowd, the dude, who was here last year with the Big Lebowski. And he just had surgery. He's coming out. He sent me this long thing about, it was a football analogy. So I didn't really follow it. I was saying, how are you? How was the surgery? He said, it's like when you're going down for the first down and, something. And he never got to the touchdown, and I know something about football, but the dude, I didn't understand what he was talking about. So I said, you know what? If the hospital will let you watch part of this streaming, which he is, I'm going to tell the Ebertfest audience to be your advocates. He said, this is what I want you to do. Now, most people say, pray for me, right? Not the dude. The dude said, give them my email address and a number that you can actually text him. So it's Jeff Dowd 6, JEFFD as in David, OWD as in David, the number 6 at gmail.com. If you want to send an email saying, get well, Jeff Dowd 6, or I didn't know whether to do this or not, because I thought, what if he was just coming out of surgery and he was on morphine and he really shouldn't be giving out his telephone number? But he said, no, please, if anyone wants to send me a text, they can send it to 310-729-9686. That's 310-729-9686. Get well, Jeff. Now, the moment we've all been waiting for. We're going to do something a little different tonight. We usually have the Q&A. No. We usually have the Q&A after the film, but tonight we're going to have the Q&A before the film. That's because we just know from experiences of seeing this film premiere I think I saw it in New York. The audiences get so involved in the film, and it's so emotional, that at the end, rather than having people come on and talk about it, we'll let them talk about it beforehand, and afterwards, we're going to have the Martin Luther King Community Choir. So I want to do something different this time. We're going to invite this amazing fellow, Elliot. He was a musician, teaches songwriting at UCLA. He lives in Hollywood with his wife and daughters. He also started and led the attempted unionization of composers in Hollywood. Alan saw this film 11 years ago. No, he heard about this film 11 years ago. And he kept hearing what great footage it was, and he wanted to get it together. It was a film shot by Sidney Pollack, but it wasn't synced. The music and the action, it wasn't, and the images weren't synced, and there was nothing, and there were all kind of things, and it took him a long time. And since he's going to be on in a few minutes, I'm not going to tell you that, there are some parts to this story about, everything he did to get it here, but it's here. So I want to introduce him, and then also Terrell Whitley, a filmmaker, entrepreneur, and visionary media executive, and the leader of a company called Liquid Soul. He founded this company in 2001, and it's since grown into one of the nation's leading brand marketing agencies, having developed campaigns for films such as Black Panther, Guardians of the Galaxy, 42, The Jackie Robinson Story, Game of Thrones, Hunger Games, and so many more blockbuster hits. As a filmmaker, Whitley produced the social documentary about police brutality called Cop Watch, which premiered during the 2017 Tribeca Film Festival. His next film is called Brian Banks, about a high school student committed to play football at USC. It'll be released in theaters in August of 2019. Of course, Whitley also produced the documentary film Amazing Grace. I want to introduce these two amazing men. First, Alan Elliot.
Thank you. Hi, Champaign, Illinois.
And so we're going to have you stand here for just a second, and we're
All
going to
right.
bring Terrell out because there's something else we're going to do differently.
Oh, good.
We usually give you a little gift after the movie, but we're going to give it to you beforehand, and then you'll get to speak.
That sounded ominous.
So also help me welcome Terrell Whitley.
Hi, everyone.
Will you tell Andy? So now you can, we're going to, we have a tradition here. We present you with golden thumbs. These thumbs were actually made from
Thumbs.
Yes. From Roger's thumb, actually, yes.
Somebody walking around without an arm or something. It's really,
That's a cast of Roger's
it's
thumb.
Cast of Roger's thumb. So, do you know, well, let me just say one thing.
go get it.
I haven't found the perfect way to present these thumbs. It's just, that's still, I don't know. So what I'm going to do is leave it to Nate to do it.
Let's do it again. Here, Nate, I'm going to put this down. Here, give it to me again, would you
Okay.
please? That was much better.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't have to carry these to your, we will put them backstage for you. And then,
Nate, if you...
but we're going to, did they tell you which microphone is yours?
Yes.
And we would like to also bring to the stage Whitney Spencer, who's going to participate in the Q&A with us. Here she is.
This is actually going to be really fun. We've done a bunch of Q&As, but we've never done one before a movie. So this is good because you get a little... The movie is structured like a musical theater show. And at the very beginning, you'll see all of the people are introduced, all the characters. And I'm going to start before Whitney can get going, but then we can talk about the Lakers. Joe Boyd, who's our producing partner, was originally hired by Warner Brothers Films to be the guy who was the synergizer bunny, synergized the film company with the record company. And he had been involved with Woodstock, and Woodstock had saved Warner Brothers Films. So they wanted to make more movies like Amazing Grace. And Joe had hired another director, a fellow named Jim Signorelli, who went to direct all the Saturday Night Live commercials for the first 35 years. And he was famous because it was a very specific skill set to be able to sync up the film with the audio. And we've never done this before, but now you get to watch the movie after I give you a little pretext, which is, so Joe had hired another guy. Sidney Pollack had gone out to dinner with Ted Ashley, who was the head of Warner Brothers Films, and said, "Oh, you're making an Aretha Franklin movie? I'd like to direct that." And he had no idea what he was doing. And you'll get to see it because there's some fun stuff, and then we'll get into it. But the fun stuff as pretext that we haven't done before we show it is Joe is meeting Sidney Pollack for the first time in the first 2 minutes of the movie. And Sidney Pollack is explaining all the stuff that he's going to do. And Joe's sort of looking at him like, well, this will be interesting. Today, there's a big article in the New York Times with Joe talking about how he let it happen and how he felt bad that he let it go on. But now you get to see it because also you get to see all of the cameramen who are running around. And the reason why the film never came out 47 years ago is because Sidney Pollack didn't bring a clapper. And you're going to see, this is not, like Whitney's dressed like she could do tech today, right? And like when people do tech, they wear all black. But you'll see these guys walking around with orange satin. I mean, they look more like Chaz, actually. Like the cameramen look more like Chaz. And you can't miss them, but what you will never see is one of those. And how they ever thought they were going to sync the movie together in a primitive way, which is how you had to do it in 1972. So I'm glad to give you that information because that's actually kind of fun before you get to watch the movie. Then it sort of explains why it was never made.
I have a question for you, Alan. You were so passionate about making sure that this movie got made, got seen by the... What was it about this? Why did you become so passionate about it? What was it that grabbed you and made you... Is this true? Somebody said you even mortgaged your house to do this?
Yep.
Okay. What was it about this film that made you do that?
We're in an academic setting. I teach songwriting at UCLA. My father was a musician. Music is sort of the holiest of holies at our house. When I was 8 years old, my father was the music director for the Grammy Awards for the first 31 years that the Grammys were on television. And they would send, before the Grammys Awards, they would send you records of the things that were going to be up for Grammy Awards. And one of them was Amazing Grace. And I was 8 years old at the time. And for whatever reason, I sort of, it's too bad Roger's not here. Because Roger would get this reference, which is that I have analogized it over the last couple of months into what Richard Dreyfuss was like in Close Encounters, which is like he's shaping the mountain. And you don't know why, right, in the mashed potatoes. And he goes, well, that looks like, and so this is a thing. They drop it in at 8 years old. My cousin's here. I don't know where you're sitting. Where are you sitting?
His cousin, by the way, is Gina Gershon.
Yeah. Okay, so Gina knows this story. When I was 7 years old, they used to take Gina and my little brother down to a place called St. Elmo Village, which was an African-American artist commune in a sort of post-Black Panther Los Angeles. And we'd go paint every weekend. And at a certain point, I mean, my life's a little weird. So at a certain point, there was a fellow there who was 6 years older, and he and I became very close. And his mother had died, and his father had split. And he was living with his uncle and aunt at St. Elmo Village, and I sensed that he needed some help. And so I said to my mother and father in 1972, we should adopt Benny. And they did. Yeah. And like, as a father of two, like, I have no idea what they were thinking about. Like, you know, oh, let's just bring a 14-year-old into this equation, right? And they did. I mean, and that actually becomes this television show called The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
What?
Yeah. Stick with me. So because I'm about to make the pivot, and it's going to be an elegant pivot. You didn't see it coming. Yeah.
Is this really true?
It's absolutely true. Gina can verify it, right? It's true. It's true. So when I got this movie, right, because there was a certain point, I was working as a staff producer at Atlantic Records. All right, so here's the fun story. Here's the fun part of the story. So in 1990, I was working for Warner Brothers Records for my brother, who is black. This is before there's cell phones. This is before there's anything. And I knew a lot about music. Atlantic Records found out that I knew a lot about music and that I was working primarily as Prince's A&R person. And they wanted to hire me away. And I wanted to be hired away. So they called me and said, would you...
Did you say Prince or Fresh Prince?
No,
Prince.
Anything having to do with Prince for whatever reason. Fresh Prince, any kind of Prince.
Okay, all right.
You know. But yes, the Prince. I was working for Prince, and so I got a call one day, would you like to come and be a staff producer at Atlantic Records? Absolutely. And the woman, there was an African-American woman named Sylvia Rohn, who was the head of the department, and she didn't make the plane ride in. The two other people came to Los Angeles and hired me on the spot. I started working for them, and they said, well, you should go and meet Sylvia. You should go to New York. So I went to New York, and I sat in a room, and there were about 8 of us in this room, and, you know, it was all white people. And this Sylvia Rohn came out, and she looked, and she was looking for Benny Medina's brother. And she turned around, and then 20 minutes later, she came back out, and there was like 5 of us. And she turned around. About 45 minutes later, she comes back. I'm the only one left. And she said, who are you? And I said, I'm Alan Elliot. She said, you're Benny Medina's brother? I said, yeah. She said, but Benny's black. And I said, yes, he is. And she said, you got to come in here. And so she said, I think you should meet all of the old people that used to work here and make all the records. And so I met this fellow named Jerry Wexler, who's a big hero of mine. And you'll see him in the movie. And Jerry Wexler produced all of the original Ray Charles records, produced the first 10 years of the Aretha Franklin records. And it was done in this very interesting way. You'll also see in the movie, there's a fellow named Arif Mardin, who's a legendary record producer. And part of the fun of this movie is these people are literally crawling on the ground fixing mic cables because it's such an intimate little movie. But it's such a great community, and here's where I'm going to make the pivot, which is, it takes a while, but fuck it, it's worth it. It's worth it. And if it's not, I'm in Champaign, Illinois, the home of Hal. I'm thrilled to be here. Does anybody get that reference? Okay, good. All right.
Yeah, we showed 2001 Space Odyssey, I think on Hal's birthday.
Okay, good.
We had a whole cyberfest.
Good. I always love Hal.
Oh, he's from Urbana. Oh, that.
See?
Good point. Good point. There's a difference,
like,
as Roger said, between
like
Urbana and Champaign.
Right, okay. So, pivot becomes, this movie, we adopted a 14-year-old African-American fellow, and I stayed with him yesterday in New York. But the community of Los Angeles adopted me. And when I see this movie, which I have to watch 4 times a week now, and it's not like another Kubrick reference, which would be like Roddy McDowell, or Malcolm McDowell watching the movie with this. I love this movie. I sit here, I'll get to watch this movie again. I love this movie. But what you get to see is like a 7-year-old boy's like wonder at how this community of Los Angeles that I was a privilege to be a part of. And when you get to watch it, it's Los Angeles. If you weren't in Los Angeles in 1972, Chaz is too young to remember back then, but this is what Los Angeles really looks like, feels like, and I'm really proud of it. I've taken too much time, but I'm so thrilled to be here and to talk about the movie. So
thank you. You asked something for Terrell.
So, can you talk to us a little bit about how you came onto the film, and then also what was your kind of first experience watching the film?
That's a good question, and I'll be quick. So,
My flight's not till tomorrow morning, so I don't care.
So again, I work in the film industry, and Alan reached out to a mutual friend of ours, Ruben Cannon, who's the producing partner for Tyler Perry. Ruben saw the film, called me quickly, and said, Terrell, I know your background, I know your history. I've been a deacon in the church for over 15 years. He's like, I know you're going to get this on first sight. So he sent me the film. I watched it in my office. I turned the volume up. My wife heard all this music from my office. She came in, she sat on my lap. We sat there and watched it on my computer, and Aretha Franklin got to Amazing Grace. At that moment, we both were crying, and I told my wife, I said, I think they want me to work on this film. I don't really know how. And she was like, you have to do something with this. This is amazing. And from there, I connected with Alan. It took a few weeks for us to get together. I went out to meet with Alan, and he is the most persistent, the most, he has a dogmatic approach to saying, I have to get this film to the marketplace. And we've gone through a really heavy roller coaster ride to get here. But it is a blessing and quite a miracle. Believe it or not, this is a miracle to make it to this point. There were so many times where it was not going to happen. And we would talk about it, and Alan, there were moments where I felt like he had given up, and I would have to say, come on, man, let's hop back on it. There were moments where I didn't know if it would ever really happen, but we praise God that it did.
So I am very curious. I grew up in the South. I grew up Baptist, so I've heard this music. I've never seen it, obviously, so I'm really excited. But sorry, but can you when I hear this music, I think about the communal experience that it evokes when you're particularly in the church. And so can you, I guess, kind of prep people in the audience for what is that experience like to sit and watch it, right? People may have heard this music before, but to sit and watch Aretha in the height of her career.
So, yeah, I will do that. I'll be very clear. So listen, last night I was in Nashville, and I showed the movie in Nashville. We had the Recording Academy of Nashville. We had the National African American Museum of Music, and then we also had the International Black Film Festival together. And they knew how to watch this movie. And there is a way to watch it. I believe it is a communal experience. And this film is about releasing. Most times when we show the film, we have an invocation, we set the atmosphere, and it's appropriate for people to feel released, meaning this is a film where you can clap, this is a film where you can sing. I had people around me singing the songs, I had people humming along. A few people in the back decided they wanted to stand up. People were raising their hands. It really is a worship experience. And that's the part that I love. The fact that this particular film, unlike others, it moves you, and Aretha has that ability. And the best part is that it really finds ways to connect people. It's great that we're having the conversation now. Trust me. When you guys leave here, you're going to have so much more conversation outside of this building. That's the kind of movie this is.
And I want to say that the movie just opened. Tell us the dates that it's open and where it's playing, because we would like for you to get the word out that the movie is available now. We can pretend that it premiered only here at the Ebertfest, but it is. Can you tell us where people can see the movie?
I can tell you we are premiering in Champaign, Illinois tonight.
Okay.
Terrell actually is,
yeah. So the film has opened in New York and LA. We did phenomenal numbers, a per screen average of above $10,000 last weekend, which is great for a doc like this. This weekend, we expand out to 15 markets. Some of our primary markets are going to be Atlanta, Detroit opens this weekend, Chicago opens this weekend, Austin, Texas. We're going to be in Baltimore, several other cities, Seattle. And so for us, including LA and New York, which is our existing run, it's called a modified platform. So we're expanding out week over week until April 19th, which is Easter weekend, which will be at our widest release at that juncture. Within a modified platform, the main objective is the increase in the consistency of the per screen average. So this weekend is critical for us. It is about people communicating over social. You're going to see commercials on television. You're going to hear it on radio because this weekend matters tremendously for what happens during Easter weekend, which is very competitive. So we'd love for you guys afterwards to hit Facebook, let people know what you see, take pictures, do whatever's necessary to really help spread the word.
Is there a hashtag?
Absolutely. The hashtag is Amazing Grace Movie, and then there's a website that allows people to put in their city and find the exact theater where it'll be showing. That website is amazing-grace-movie.com.
When I saw this in New York, it was preceded by two pastors, actually, who almost preached a sermon before the movie showed. And so even though it was, whoever said that, it was, you could feel it. There was so much emotion and so beautiful. I wish I could preach so that I could have done it, but I can't. But what we're going to do is, I did want to ask, what are you doing to get church groups involved with the movie?
Well, the specific church groups, I'll let him talk about. I mean, one of the, there's a lot of responsibilities that go around the movie. It's Aretha Franklin, and I mean, for me personally, it's Sidney Pollack, it's Jerry Wexler, and Aretha Franklin. So there's three giant responsibilities. Aretha Franklin is, if they had a fifth person that they could put on Mount Rushmore. And she's also, it'll be interesting, we'll talk about it again before, but she only says about 4 sentences in the whole movie. And you don't know a lot about Aretha Franklin, but we all relate to Aretha Franklin. She's like a tabula rasa that we can sort of project onto. So Terrell and I have these conversations all the time about what would Aretha do? Because, we'll get into a situation and you go like, well, would she want that? Would she want this? And one of the things that has brought us the greatest joy is a partnership with Reverend William Barber, who's a personal hero of mine, and Repairers of the Breach, and the Poor People's Campaign. And Reverend Barber preached at Aretha's funeral. He was also asked to do her last revival. And he's a very important person, and he's gone all over the country with us to open the movie in Detroit and Los Angeles and New York and Selma at the Equal Justice Initiative in Atlanta. And his presence is what we think Aretha would do. And we're trying to make sure that we, it's great. It's a great movie. I'm very proud of it. But we have to do the responsible thing for the greater, because this is one of the most important women of the 20th century.
Yeah, Aretha was probably my favorite woman singer. I like I have an eclectic taste in music. I happen to love opera as well, and so I like, June Anderson and Marian Anderson and, a lot of people. But when you talk about being on a desert island, if there was one person, if I could only listen to one person for the rest of my life, it probably would be Aretha, because she really, I wrote an article, and I said this, and somebody said, oh, I don't know if she would like that, because I said her singing is visceral. It hits me in the gut. There's a certain music called gut bucket blues. Oh, somebody knows that, all right? And the reason, and it's nothing bad, it just means no one has to explain it to you. You hear it and you know it. You feel it in your heart, you feel it in every cell of your body, and that's what her music was like to me, both her secular music and her gospel music. And so watching her on the screen and watching the sweat coming down off her face and her father wiping it from the brow and everything, it's just such a intimate experience. And I've met Aretha a few times. Roger and I, we would go back, we would, wherever, we were all performing somewhere, doing something. And so we'd be backstage, and she was, a little eccentric, I'll say. But on one-on-one, she was so much fun, and we'd sit back, and she'd tell us, she'd come back, we'd go back into the, the green room, and she'd have somebody bring us food, and then she'd kick off her shoes and just relax. And she called Roger Gemini Man because he was born June 18th. And anyway, she was just so kind of real and down to earth. And the music, you can see that her music came from, she channeled it from her soul, is the way I describe it.
I think one of the things that I would love, what I've seen over the last few weeks are many of our audiences are mature. And I think that's appropriate. Many of us have a relationship with Aretha. We know her, correct? We've seen her as the Queen of Soul. Well, a lot of young people, they don't know this Aretha Franklin. This Aretha Franklin at the age of 29, at the peak of her power, they've never seen this Aretha. They've seen Aretha with the jewels and the gowns and the fur coats, but they haven't seen this young Aretha with the beautiful skin and the afro, and her voice is so very powerful. And I told the audience this last night. I said, there's no overdubs, there's no auto-tune. This is pure. This is just Aretha. And now, the reason why that's important, and really this is why I say, because we're mature and we understand it, this is also an opportunity to bring our young people in to say, now sit and let me talk to you. Let me show you what a real singer or musicians are all about. And so last night, a 21-year-old young man said, I did not want to come here tonight. He said, I was not interested in seeing this movie. But he said, I saw it, and this was the best movie ever. He said, I never knew Aretha Franklin like that. And that's the benefit, and I think that's one of the blessings that this film has to offer, is to show our young people something they've never seen. This really is a document of a film. It takes people. You will literally feel, this room, you will feel like it is 1972 as you watch this film. Trust me on that. And so the element of being able to transfer that to young people and help them to connect with what we know, I think is extremely important. And that's the thing about Aretha that, I love, and how I like to share it with my daughters who are 16 and 14, so that they understand. When they see Beyonce, there was somebody else. And I want you to know who was greater and whose shoulders a Beyonce stands on. And her name is Aretha Franklin.
So I think with that, I don't think there's anything more to say. I think we should see the movie. But thank Alan Elliot, Terrell Whitley, and Whitney Spencer.